let's continue reading the Real Barenziah. So, looking forward to know the rest of the story from her point of view. So, yeah, let's start with Volume 2. The Real Barenziah, Volume 2, by Anonymous. Barenziah and Straw settled into Rifton for the winter, taking a cheap room in the slummier section of town. Barenziah wanted to join the Thieves' Guild, knowing there would be trouble if she were caught freelancing. One day in a barroom, she caught the eye of a known member of the guild, a bald young Kashid named Theris. She offered to bet him if he would sponsor her membership. He looked her over, grinning, and agreed, but said she would still have to pass an initiation. What sort of an initiation? Ah, Theris said. Pay up first, sweetness. This passage has been censored by order of the temple. Straw was going to kill her, and maybe Theris too. What in Tamriel had possessed her to do such a thing? She cast an apprehensive look around the room, but the other patrons had lost interest and gone back to their own business. Wait, what? Oh. She did not recognize any of them. This wasn't the inn where she and Straw were staying. With luck, it would be a while, or never, before Straw found out. Theris was by far the most exciting and attractive man she had yet met. He not only told her about the skills she needed to become a member of the Thieves' Guild, but also trained her in them himself, or else introduced her to people who could. Among these was a woman who knew something about magic. Katisha was a plump and matronly Nord. She was married to the smith, had 2 teenage children, and was perfectly ordinary and respectable, except that she was very fond of cats, and by logical inference their humanoid counterparts, the Kashid. Had a talent for certain kinds of magic, and cultivated rather other friends. She taught Barenziah an invisibility spell, and schooled her in other forms of stealth and disguise. Katisha mingled magical and non-magical talents freely, using one set to enhance the other. She was not a member of the Thieves' Guild, but was fond of Theris in a motherly sort of way. Barenziah warmed to her as she never had towards any woman, and over the next few weeks she told Katisha all about herself. She brought Straw there too sometimes. Straw approved of Katisha, but not of Theris. Theris found Straw interesting and suggested to Barenziah that they arrange what he called a threesome. Absolutely not, Barenziah said firmly, grateful that Theris had broached this subject in private for once. He wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like it. Theris smiled his charming triangular feline smile and sprawled lazily on his chair, stretching his limbs and curling his tail. You might be surprised, both of you. Pairing is so boring. Barenziah answered him with a glare. Or maybe you wouldn't like it with that country bumpkin of yours, sweetness. Would you mind if I brought along another friend? Yes, I would. If you're bored with me, you and your friend can find someone else. She was a member of the Thieves' Guild now. She had passed their initiation. She found Theris useful, but not essential. Maybe she was a bit bored with him too. She talked to Katisha about her problems with men, or what she thought of as her problems with men. Katisha shook her head and told her she was looking for love, not sex, that she would know the right man when she found him, that neither Straw nor Theris was the right one for her. Barenziah cocked her head to one side quizzically. They say dark elven women are something. Prostitutes, she said, although she was dubious. You mean promiscuous. Although some do become prostitutes, I suppose. Katisha said as an afterthought. Elves are promiscuous when they are young, but you will outgrow it. Perhaps you're beginning to already, she added hopefully. She, like Barenziah, had grown to be quite fond of her. You ought to meet some nice elven boys, though. If you go on keeping company with Kashids and humans and what have you, you will find yourself pregnant in next to no time. Barenziah smiled involuntarily at the thought. I like that, I think, but it would be inconvenient, wouldn't it? Baby's are a lot of trouble, and I don't even have my own house yet. How old are you, Barry? 17? Well, you're a year or two yet before you're fertile, unless you're very unlucky. Elves don't have children readily with other elves after that. Even, you will be alright if you stick with them. Barenziah remembered something else. Straw wants to buy a farm and marry me. Is that what you want? No, not yet. Maybe someday. Yes, someday. But not if I can't be queen. And not just any queen. The Queen of Mournhold. She said this determinedly, almost stubbornly, as if to drown out any doubt. Katisha chose to ignore this last comment. She was amused at the girl's hyperactive imagination, took it as a sign of a well-functioning mind. I think Straw will be a very old man before someday comes, Barry. Elves live for a very long time. Katisha's face briefly wore the envious, wistful look humans got when contemplating the 1,000 years lifespan elf had been granted by the gods. True, fewer ever actually lived that long, as disease and violence took their respective tolls, but they could, and one or two of them actually did. I like old men too, Barry said. Katisha laughed. Barenziah fidgeted impatiently while Terence sorted through the papers on the desk. He was being meticulous and methodical, carefully replacing everything just as he has found it. They had broken into a nobleman's household, leaving Straw to hover outside as lookout. Terence had said it was a simple job, but very hush-hush. He hadn't even wanted to bring any other guild members along. He said he knew he could trust Barry and Straw, but no one else. Tell me what you're looking for and I'll find it, Barry whispered urgently. Terry's night's sight wasn't as good as hers, and he didn't want her to magic up even a small orb of light. She had never been in such a luxurious place. Not even the Darkmoor castle the Count Sven and Lady Inga where she had spent her childhood compared to it. She had gazed around in wonder as they made their way through the ornately decorated and hugely echoing downstairs rooms, but Theris didn't seem interested in anything but the desk in the small book-lined study on the upper floor. Psst, he hissed angrily. Someone's coming, Barry said. The moment before the door opened and two dark figures stepped into the room. Theris gave her a violent shove towards them and sprang to the window. Barenziah's muscles went rigid. She couldn't move or even speak. She watched helplessly as one of the figures, the smaller one, leaped after Theris. There were two quick, silent stabs of blue light. Then Theris floated over into a still heap. Outside the study, the house had become alive with hastening footsteps and voices calling out in alarm, and the clank of armor hurriedly put on. The bigger man, a dark elf, by the looks of him, half lifted, half dragged Theris to the door and thrust him into the waiting arms of another elf. A jerk of the first elf's head sent his smaller blue-robed companion after them. Then he sauntered over to inspect Barenziah, who was once again able to move, although her head throbbed maddeningly when she tried to. "Open your shirt, Barenziah," the elf said. Barenziah gawked at him and clutched it close. "You're a girl, aren't you, Barry?" he said softly. "You should have stopped dressing as a boy months ago, you know. You were only drawing attention to yourself. And calling yourself Barry. Is your friend Straw too stupid to remember anything else?" "It's a common elven name," Barenziah defended. The man shook his head sadly. "Not among dark elves it isn't, my dear. But you wouldn't know much about dark elves, would you? I regret that, but it couldn't be helped. No matter, I shall try to remedy it." "Who are you?" Barenziah demanded. Not so much for fame," the man shrugged, smiling wryly. "I am Symmachus, my Lady Barenziah, General Symmachus of His Awesome and Terrible Majesty Tiber Septim's First Imperial Army. And I must say that it's a merry chase you have led me through Tamriel, or this part of it anyway, although I guessed correctly that you would head for Morrowind eventually. You had a bit of luck. A body was found in Whiterun that was thought to be Straw's. So we stopped looking for the pair of you. That was careless of me. Yet I would not have thought you would have stayed together this long. Where is he? Is he all right? She asked in genuine trepidation. Oh, he's fine, for now. In custody, of course. He turned away. You care for him, then? He said, and then suddenly stared at her with fierce curiosity, out of red eyes that seemed strange to her, except in her own seldom-seen reflection. He's my friend, Barenziah said. The words came out in a tone that sounded dull and hopeless to her own ears. Symmachus, a general in the Imperial Army, no less, said to have the friendship and ears of Tiber Septim himself. Hey, you seem to have several unsuitable friends, if you will forgive my saying so, my lady. Stop calling me that. She was irritated at the general's seeming sarcasm, but he only smiled. As they talked, the bustle and flurry in the house died away, although she could still hear people, presumably the residents, whispering together not far off. The tall elf perched himself on a corner of the desk. He seemed quite relaxed and prepared to stay a while. Then it occurred to her. Several unsuitable friends, had he said. This man knew all about her, or seemed to know enough anyways. Which amounted to the same thing. What's going to happen to them? To me? Ah, as you know, this house belongs to the commander of the Imperial troops in this area, which means to say that it belongs to me. Barenziah gasped and Symmachus looked up sharply. What? You didn't know? Why, you're rash. My lady, even for 17, you must always know what it is you do or get yourself into. But the guild wouldn't have... Barenziah was trembling. The Thieves' Guild would never have attempted a mission that crossed Imperial policy. No one dared oppose Tiber Septim, at least no one she knew of. Someone at the guild had bungled badly, and now she was going to pay for it. I dare say it's unlikely that Theris had guild approval for this. In fact, I wonder. Symmachus examined the desk carefully. Pulling out drawers, he selected one, placed it on top of the desk, and removed the false bottom. There was a folded sheet of parchment inside. It seemed to be a map of some sort. Barenziah edged closer. Symmachus held it away from her, laughing. Rash indeed. He glanced it over, then folded and replaced it. You advised me a moment ago to seek after knowledge. So I did. Suddenly he seemed to be in high good humor. We must be going, my dear lady. He shepherded her to the door, down the stairs, and out into the night air. No one was about. Barenziah's eyes darted towards the shadows. She wondered if she could outrun him, or elude him somehow. You're not thinking of attempting to escape, are you? Hey, don't you want to hear first what my plans for you are? She thought that he sounded a bit hurt. Now that you mention it. Yes. Perhaps you would rather hear about your friends first. No. He looked gratified at this. It was evidently the answer he wanted, thought Barenziah, but it was also the truth. While she was concerned for her friends, especially Straw, she was far more concerned for herself. You will take your place as the rightful Queen of Mournhold. This is good. This is really fucking good. Sorry that I sometimes kind of have to pause and talk about it because they are longer books, so half-an-hour books, and I'm going to have a lot of issues remembering everything. Oh. Now I get it why she goes with him. Now I get it. Yeah. That was kind of my question last time, so I'm kind of like excited to know what's going to happen now. Like the idea that Theris was it wasn't guild approved. That's also interesting. So that's why he wasn't even telling her or I think Straw what they were doing. She was kind of technically abandoned. She was just thrown there, paralyzed, and then just everyone ran away. So that was pretty shitty of them. I know you have to get away, but come on, man. Don't be like that. Those are not your friends, girl. Run away. Let's continue. Symmachus explained that this had been his and Tiber plan for her all along, that Mournhold, which had been under military rule for a dozen or so years since she had been away, was gradually to be returned to the civilian government under the Empire's guidance, of course, and as part of the imperial province of Morrowind. But why was I sent to Darkmoor? Barenziah asked, hardly believing anything she had just been told. For safekeeping, naturally. Why did you run away? Barenziah shrugged. I saw no reason to stay. I should have been told. You would have been by now. I had in fact sent for you to be removed to the Imperial City to spend some time as part of the Emperor's household. But of course, you had, shall we say, absconded by then. As for your destiny, it should be, and should have been, quite obvious to you. Tiber does not keep those he has no use for, and what else could you be that would be of use to him? I knew nothing of him, nor for that matter, of you. Then know this. Tiber rewards friends and foes alike according to their deserts. Barenziah chewed on that for a few moments. Stroll has deserved well of me and has never done anyone any harm. He is not a member of the Thieves' Guild. He came along to protect me. He earns our keep by running errands. And Symmachus waved her impatiently to silence. Hey, I know all about Straw, he said, and about Theris. He stared at her intently. So? What would you? She took a deep breath. Straw wants a little farm. If I am to be rich, then I would like for one to be given to him. Very well. He seemed astonished at this, and then pleased. Done. He shall have it. And Theris? He betrayed me, Barenziah said coldly. Theris should have told her what risk the shove entailed. Besides, he pushed her right into their enemy's arms in an attempt to save himself. Not a man to be rewarded. Not, in fact, a man to be trusted. Yes, and? Well, he should be made to suffer for it, shouldn't he? That seems reasonable. What form should a said suffering take? Barenziah balled her hands into fists. She would have liked to beat and claw at the Kashid herself, but considering the turn of events had taken, that didn't seem very queenly. A whipping. Would 20 stripes be too many, do you think? I don't want to do him any permanent injury, you understand. Just teach him a lesson. Hey, of course. Symmachus grinned at this, then his features suddenly set, and became serious. It shall be done, your highness, my lady Queen Barenziah of Mournhold. Then he bowed to her, a sweeping, courtly, ridiculously wonderful bow. Barenziah's heart leapt. Mine would too, to be honest. He knows how to manipulate her, I think. Yeah. He knows what he's doing. He knows what she wants and knows how to act the part. I like that. I like that she gave them different things. Like she kind of recognized that she was betrayed by Theris. So that's actually pretty good. She spent 2 days at Symmachus' apartment, during which she was kept very busy. There was a dark elven woman named Drelian, who saw her to her needs, although she did not exactly seem a servant, since she took her meals with them. Nor did she seem to be Symmachus' wife, or lover. Drelian looked amused when Barenziah asked her about it. She simply said she was in the general's employ and did whatever she was asked for. With Drelian's assistance, several fine gowns and pairs of shoes were ordered for her, plus a riding habit and boots, along with other small necessities. Barenziah was given a room to herself. Symmachus was out a great deal. She saw him at most mealtimes, but he said little about himself or what he had been doing. He was cordial and polite, quite willing to converse on most subjects, and seemed interested in anything she had to say. Drelian was much the same. Barenziah found them pleasant enough, but hard to get to know. As Katisha would have put it, she felt an odd twinge of disappointment. These were the first dark elves with whom she had associated closely. She had expected to feel comfortable with them, to feel at least that she belonged somewhere, with somebody, as part of something. Instead, she found herself yearning for her Nordic friends, Katisha and Straw. When Symmachus told her they were to set out for the Imperial City on the morrow, she asked if she could say goodbye to them. Katisha? He asked. Hey, but then I suppose I owe her something. It was who led me to you by telling me of a lonely dark elven girl named Berry who needed elven friends, and who sometimes dressed as a boy. She has no association with the Thieves' Guild, apparently, and no one associated with the Thieves' Guilds seemed to know your true identity. Save Theris. That is well. I prefer that your former guild membership not be made public knowledge. Please speak of it to no one, your highness. Such a past does not become an imperial queen. No one knows but Straw and Theris, and they won't tell anyone. No, he smiled a curious little smile. No, they won't. Is he going to kill them? He didn't know that Katisha knew then, but still, there was something about the way he said it. Straw came to their apartment in the morning of their departure. They were left alone in the saloon, although Barenziah knew that other elves were within earshot. He looked drawn and pale. They hugged one another silently for a few minutes. Straw's shoulders were shaking and tears were rolling down his cheeks, but he said nothing. Barenziah tried to smile. So we both get what we want, eh? I'm to be Queen of Morgul, and you will be Lord of your own farmstead. She took his hand, smiled at him warmly, genuinely. I'll write you, Straw, I promise. You must find a scribe so you can write me too. Straw shook his head sadly, then Barenziah persisted. He opened his mouth and pointed at it, making inarticulate noises. Then she realized what it was. His tongue was gone, had been cut off. Barenziah collapsed onto a chair and wept noisily. Oh, that's even worse! But I mean, one has to make sure that nothing goes out, right? I understand that. But why? She demanded of Symmachus then when Straw had been ushered away. Why? Symmachus shrugged. He knows too much. He could be dangerous. At least he's alive, and he won't need his tongue to raise pigs or whatever. I hate you, Barenziah screamed at him, then abruptly doubled over and vomited on the floor. She continued to revile him between intermittent bouts of nausea. He listened stupidly for some time while Drelaine cleaned up after her. Finally, he told her to cease or he will gag her for her journey to the Emperor. They stopped at Katisha's house on their way out of the city. Symmachus and Drelaine didn't dismount. All seemed normal, but Barenziah was frightened as she knocked on the door. Katisha answered the knock. Barenziah thanked the gods silently that at least she was all right. But she had also been weeping. In any case, she embraced Barenziah warmly. What are you crying? Barenziah asked. For Theris, of course. You haven't heard? Oh dear, poor Theris. He's dead. Barenziah felt icy fingers creeping around her heart. He was caught stealing from the commandant's house. Poor fellow, but that was so foolish of him. Oh, Barry, he was thrown and quartered this very dawn by the commandant's order. She started to sob. I went. He asked for me. It was terrible. He suffered so before he died. I'll never forget it. I looked for you on Straw, but no one knew where you had both gone. She glanced behind Barenziah. That's the commandant, isn't it, Symmachus? Then Katisha did a strange thing. She stopped crying and grinned. You know, the moment I saw him, I thought, this is the one for Barenziah. Katisha took a fold of her apron and wiped it across her eyes. I told him about you, you know. Yes, Barenziah said, I know. She took Katisha's hand in each of hers and looked at her endlessly. Katisha, I love you. I'm going to miss you. But please don't ever tell anyone anything about me, ever. Swear you won't, especially not to Symmachus. And look after Straw for me. Promise me that. Katisha promised, puzzled, though willing. Very. It wasn't somehow because of me that Theris was caught, was it? I never said anything about Theris to him. She glanced over at the general. Barenziah assured her that it wasn't, that an informant had told the Imperial Guard of Theris' plans, which was probably a lie, but she could see that Katisha plainly needed some kind of comfort. Oh, I'm glad of that. If I can't be glad of anything just now, I would hate to think. But how could I have known? She leaned over and whispered in Barenziah's ear. Symmachus is very handsome, don't you think? And so charming. I wouldn't know about that, Barenziah said dryly. I haven't really thought about it. There have been other things to think about. She explained hurriedly about being Queen of Mornhold and going to live in the Imperial City for a while. He was looking for me, that's all. On orders from the Emperor. I was an object of a quest, nothing more than some sort of a goal. I don't think he thinks of me as a woman at all. He said I didn't look like a boy, though. She added in the face of Katisha's incredulity. Katisha knew that Barenziah evaluated every male she met in terms of sexual desirability and viability. I suppose that's the shock of finding out that I really am a queen, she added. And Katisha agreed that yes, that's true. That must have been something of a shock, although one there was no likelihood of her experiencing firsthand. She smiled. Barenziah smiled with her. When they hugged again, tearfully for the last time, she never saw Katisha again. Or Straw. The royal party left Riften by the Great Southern Gate. Once through, Symmachus tapped on her shoulder and pointed back at the portals. I thought you might want to say goodbye to Theris too, Your Highness, he said. Barenziah stared briefly, but steadily at the head impaled on a spike above the gate. The birds had been at it, but the face was still recognizable. I don't think he will hear me, although I'm quite sure he will be pleased to know I'm fine, she said, seeming to sound light. Let's be on our way, General, shall we? Symmachus was clearly disappointed by her lack of reaction. Hey, you heard of this from your friend Katisha, I suppose. You suppose correctly. She attended the execution. Barenziah said casually. If he didn't know already, he would find out soon enough. She was sure of that. Did she know Theris belonged to the guild? She shrugged. Everyone knew that. It's only lower-ranking members like me who are supposed to keep their membership secret. The ones higher up? Not all want to know. She turned to smile archly at him. But you must know all that, shouldn't you, General? She said sweetly. He seemed unaffected by this. So you told her who you were and whence you came, but not about the guild? The guild membership was not my secret to tell. The other was. There's a difference. Besides, Katisha's a very honest woman. Had I told her, it would have lessened me in her eyes. She was always after Theris to take up a more honest line of work. I value her good opinion. She afforded him a glacial stare. Not that it's any concern of yours. But do you know what else she thought? She also thought I'll be happier if I settle down with just one man. One of my own race. One of my own race with all the right qualities. One of my own race with all the right qualities who knows to say all the right things. You, in fact. She grabbed the reins, preparatory to assuming a brisker pace, but not without sinking one final irresistible barb. Isn't it odd how wishes come true sometimes? But not in the way you want them to. Isn't it odd how wishes come true sometimes, but not in the way you want them to? Or maybe, I should say, not in the way you would ever want them to. His answer so took her by surprise that she quite forgot about cantering off. Yes, very odd, he replied, as his tone matched his words exactly. Then he excused himself and fell behind. She held her head high and urged her mount onward, trying to look unimpressed. Now, what was it about his response that bothered her? Not what he said. No, that wasn't it. But something about the way he said it. Something about it made her think that she, Barenziah, was one of his wishes that had come true. Unlikely as this seemed, she gave it due deliberation. He had found her at last, after months of searching, it seemed, under pressure from the Emperor, no doubt. So his wish had come true. Yes, that must be it. But in a way apparently not altogether to his liking. Oh, that's it? I mean, I say that's it, but it's already been 32 minutes. Yeah, that was good. I like it. I like it a lot. He's being pretty obvious about what he wants. I like it. I like the dynamic. I want them to be... I don't know. Oh, God. Do they actually fall in love afterwards? I know they get married, they have 2 children, but I don't know. That can happen without love. I wonder if it's like an enemies to lovers kind of thing. That would be interesting. Okay, so The Real Barenziah, Volume 3. For several days, Barenziah felt a weight of sorrow at her separation from her friends, but by the second week out, her spirits began to rise a little. She found that she enjoyed being on the road again, although she missed Straw's companionship more than she would have thought. They were escorted by a troop of Red Guard knights, with whom she felt comfortable, although these were much more disciplined and decorous than the guards of the merchant caravans she had spent time with. They were genial, but respectful towards her despite her attempts at flirtation. Symmachus scolded her privately, saying a queen must maintain royal dignity at all times. "You mean I never had to have any fun?" she inquired petulantly. "Hey, no with such as these. They are beneath you. Graciousness is to be desired from those in authority, my lady. Familiarity is not. You will remain chaste and modest while you are in the imperial city." Barenziah made a face. "I might as well be back at Darkmoor Keep. Elves are promiscuous by nature. You know, everyone says so." "Everyone is wrong, then. Some are, some aren't. The Emperor and I expect you to display both discrimination and good taste. Let me remind you, Your Highness, that you hold the throne of Morhold, not not by right of blood, but solely at the pleasure of Tiber Septim. If he judges you unsuitable, your reign will end ere it begins. He requires intelligence, obedience, discretion, and total loyalty of all his appointees, and he favors chastity and modesty in women. I strongly suggest you model your deportment after our good Drelaine, my lady." "I would as lief be back in Darkmoor," Barenziah snapped resentfully, offended at the thought of emulating the frigid, prudish Drelaine in any way. "That is not an option, Your Highness. If you are of no use to Tiber Septim, he will see to it that you are of no use to his enemies either," the general said portentously. "If you would keep your head on your shoulders, take heed. Let me add that power offers pleasures other than those of carnality and cavorting with base company." He began to speak of art, literature, drama, music, and the grand balls thrown at the imperial court. Barenziah listened with growing interest, spurred on not entirely by his threats. But afterwards she asked timidly if she might continue her study of magic while in this imperial city. Symmachus seemed pleased at this and promised to arrange it. Encouraged, she then said that she noted 3 of their knights' escort were women, and asked if she might train a little with them, just for the sake of exercise. The general looked less delighted at this, but gave his consent, though stressing that it would only be with the women. The light winter weather held fair, though slightly frosty for the rest of their journey, so that they traveled quickly over the firm roads. On the last day of their trip, spring seemed to have arrived at last, for there were hints of a thaw. The road grew muddy underfoot, and everywhere hear water trickling and rippling faintly, but steadily. It was a welcome sound. They came to the great bridge that crossed into the imperial city at sunset. The rosy glow turned the stark white marble edifices of the metropolis a delicate pink. It all looked very new and grand and immaculate. A broad avenue led north towards the palace. A crowd of people of all sorts and races filled the wide concourse. Lights winked out in the shops and on in the inns, and dusk fell, and stars came out singly then. Wow. By twos and threes. Even the side streets were broad and brightly illuminated. Near the palace, the towers of an immense spacious guildhall reared towards the east, while westward the stained glass windows of a huge tabernacle glittered in the dying light. Symmachus had apartments in a magnificent house 2 blocks from the palace, past the temple of the One. He identified as they passed it, an ancient Nordic cult which Diver Septim had revived. He said that Barenziah would be expected to become a member should she prove acceptable to the Emperor. The place was quite splendid, although little to Barenziah's taste. The walls and furnishings were done in utter pristine white, relieved only by touches of dull gold, and the floors in duly gleaming black marble. Barenziah's eyes are aged for color and the interplay of subtle shadings. In the morning, Symmachus and Trelane escorted her to the imperial palace. Barenziah noted that everyone they met greeted Symmachus with a deferential respect, in some cases bordering on obsequiousness. The general seemed to take it for granted. They were ushered directly into the imperial presence. Morning sun flooded a small room through a large window with tiny panes, washing over a sumptuously laden breakfast table and the single man who sat there, dark against the light. He leapt to his feet as they entered and hurried towards them. "Ah, Symmachus, our most loyal friend, we welcome your return most gladly." His hands held Symmachus' shoulders briefly, fondly, halting the deep genuflection the dark elf had been in the process of effecting. Barenziah's courtside as Diver Septim turned to her. "Barenziah, our naughty little runaway. How do you do, child? Here, let us have a look at you. Why, Symmachus, she's charming, absolutely charming. Why have you hidden her from us all these years? Is the light too much, child? Shall we draw the hangings?" "Yes, of course." He waved aside Symmachus' protests and drew the curtains himself, not troubling to summon a servant. "You will pardon us for this discourtesy towards ourselves, our dear guest. We have much to think of, though that's scant excuse for us hospitality's neglect. But pray join us. There's some excellent nectarines from Black Marsh." They settled themselves at the table. Barenziah was dumbfounded. Diver Septim was nothing like the grim, great, giant warrior she had pictured. He was of average height, fully half a head shorter than tall Symmachus, although he was well knit of figure and lithe of movement. He had a winning smile, bright, indeed piercing, blue eyes, and a full head of stark white hair above a lined and weathered face. He might have been any age from 40 to 60. He pressed food and drink upon them, then repeated the question the general had asked her days ago. Why had she left home? Had her guardians been unkind to her? "No, Excellency," Barenziah replied. "In truth, no, although I fancied so at times." Symmachus had fabricated a story for her, and Barenziah told it now, although with a certain misgiving. The stable boy, Straw, had convinced her that her guardians, unable to find a suitable husband for her, meant to sell her off as a concubine in rehab, and when a red guard had indeed come, she had panicked and fled with Straw. So that's... oh, interesting. So that's why... It's kind of like a cover-up. Tiber Septim seemed fascinated and listened raptly as she provided details of her life as a merchant caravan escort. Why, this like a ballad, he said. By the one, we'll have the court bard study to music. What a charming boy you must have made. General Symmachus said. Barenziah stopped in some confusion, then proceeded. He said, well, that I no longer look much like a boy. I have grown in the past few months. She lowered her gaze in what she hoped approximated maidenly modesty. He's a very discerning fellow. He's a loyal friend, Symmachus. I know I have been very foolish girl, Excellency. I must crave your pardon and that of my kind guardians. I realized that some time ago, but I was too ashamed to go back home. But I don't want to return to Darkmoor now, Excellency. I long for Mournhold. My soul pines for my own country. Our dear child, you shall go home, we promise you. But we pray you remain with us a little longer, that you may prepare yourself for the grave and solemn task with which we shall charge you. Barenziah gazed at him earnestly, heart beating fast. It was all working just as Symmachus had said it would. She felt a warm flush of gratitude towards him, but was careful to keep her attention focused on the Emperor. I am honored, Excellency, and wish most earnestly to serve you and this great empire you have built in any way I can. It was the politic thing to say, to be sure, but Barenziah really meant it. She was awed at the magnificence of the city and the discipline and order evident everywhere, and moreover was excited at the prospect of being a part of it all. And she felt quite taken by the gentle Tiber Septim. Interesting. It's good. I am enjoying it. I need to take some breaks in the middle because my throat is just working too much today. Let's continue. After a few days, Symmachus left for Mournhold to take up the duties of a governor until Barenziah was ready to assume the throne, after which he would become her prime minister. Barenziah, with Relaine as chaperone, took up residence in a suite of rooms at the imperial palace. Several tutors were provided her, in all the fields deemed seemingly for a queenly education. During this time, she became deeply interested in magical arts, but she found the study of history and politics not at all to her preference. On occasion, she met with Tiber Septim in the palace gardens, and he would unfailingly and politely inquire as to her progress, and chide her, although with a smile, for her disinterest at matters of state. However, he was always happy to instruct her on the finer points of magic, and he could make even history and politics seem interesting. They are people, child, not dry facts in a dusty volume, he said. As her understanding broadened, their discussions grew longer, deeper, more frequent. He spoke to her of his vision of a united Tamriel, each race separate and distinct but with shared ideals and goals, all contributing to the commonwealth. Some things are universal, shared by all sentient folk of goodwill, he said. So the one teaches us we must unite against the malicious and the brutish, the miscreated, the orcs, trolls, goblins, and other worse creatures, and not strive against one another. His blue eyes would light up as he stared into his dream, and Barenziah was delighted just to sit and listen to him. If he drew close to her, the side of her body next to him would glow as if he were a smoldering blaze. If their hands met, she would tingle all over as if his body were charged with a shock spell. One day, quite unexpectedly, he took her face in his hands and kissed her gently on the mouth. She drew back after a few moments, astonished by the violence of her feelings, and he apologized instantly. We didn't mean to do that. It's just, you're so beautiful, dear. So very beautiful. He was looking at her with hopeless yearning in his generous eyes. She turned away, tears streaming down her face. Are you angry with us? Speak to us, please. Barenziah shook her head. I could never be angry with you, Excellency. Oh, oh. Wait, sorry. Uh, I love you. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. We have a concert, he said. She is a good and virtuous woman, the mother of our children and future heirs. We could never put her aside. Yet there is nothing between us and her. No sharing of the spirit. She would have us be other than what we are. We are the most powerful person in all of Tamriel and Barenziah. I think I am the most lonely as well. He stood up suddenly. Power, he said with sublime contempt. I would trade a godly share of it for youth and love if the gods will only sanction it. But you're strong and vigorous and vital, more than any man I have ever known. He shook his head vehemently. Today, perhaps. Yet I am less than I was yesterday. Last year, 10 years ago. I feel the sting of my mortality, and it is painful. If I can ease your pain, let me. Barenziah moved towards him, hands outstretched. No, I would not take your innocence from you. I am not that innocent. How so? The Emperor's voice suddenly grated harshly, his brows knitted. Oh no. No, don't fuck up. I mean, the Emperor is kind of a piece of shit for doing what he's doing, but okay. Barenziah's mouth went dry. What had he just said? But she couldn't turn back now. He would know. There was a straw, she faltered. I was lonely. I am lonely. I am not so strong as you. She cast her eyes down in abashment. I guess I'm not worthy, Excellency. No, not so, Barenziah. My Barenziah. It cannot last for long. You have a duty towards Mournhold, and I a duty towards the Empire. I must tend towards mine as well. But while we may, shall we share what we have, what we can, and pray the one forgives us our reality. Tiber Septim held out his arms, and wordlessly, willingly, Barenziah stepped into his embrace. Okay, I mean, she's very young. I don't know how to feel about that. I mean, she married someone that's like a century old, so. As fucked up as this is, I'm enjoying it. I should not be enjoying it this much. She's 17! Stop! Don't be like that. I mean, my suspension of disbelief is pretty good for a lot of stuff, but sometimes I just come back to reality. I'm like, oh no, just why? No, all these people are old. Okay, so you cap around the edge of a volcano, child. Verlaine admonished as Barenziah admired the splendid star sapphire ring her imperial lover had given her to celebrate their 1-month anniversary. How so? We make one another happy. We harm no one. Symmachus bade me be discriminating and discreet. Who better could I choose? And we have been most discreet. He treats me like a daughter in public. Tiber Septim's nightly visits were made through a secret passage that only few in the palace were privy to. Himself and a handful of trusted bodyguards. He slavers over you like a cur in his supper. Have you not noticed the coolness of the Empress and her son towards you? Barenziah shrugged. Even before she and Septim had become lovers, she has received no more from his family than bare civility. Threadbare civility. What matter? It is Tiber who holds the power. But it is his son who holds the future. Do not put his mother up to public scorn, I beg you. Can I help it if that dry stick of a woman cannot hold her husband's interest even in conversation at dinner? Have less to say in public, that is all I ask. She matters little, it is true, but her children love her, and you do not want them as enemies. Tiber Septim has not long to live, I mean, Rowena amended quickly at Barenziah scowled. Humans are short-lived, ephemeral. As what? As we of the elven races say, they come and go as the seasons, but the families of the powerful ones live on for a time. You must be a friend to this family if you must be a friend you must be a friend to this family if you will see lasting profit from your relationship. Ah, but how can I make you see truly? You who are so young and human-bred as well. If you take heed and wisely, you and Morhold are like to live to see the fall of Septim's dynasty, if indeed he has found one, just as you have witnessed his rise. It is the way of human history. They ebb and flow like the inconstant tides. Their cities and dominions bloom like spring flowers, only to wither and die in the summer sun. But the elves endure. We are as a year to their hour, a decade to their day. Barenziah just laughed. She knew that rumors abounded about her and Timber Septim. She enjoyed the attention, for all save the Empress and her son seemed captivated by her. Minstrels sang of her dark beauty and her charming ways. She was in fashion and in love, and if it was temporary, well, what was not? She was happy for the first time she could remember, each of her days filled with joy and pleasure, and the nights were even better. What is wrong with me? Barenziah lamented. Look, no one of my skirts fit. What's become of my waistline? Am I getting fat? Barenziah regarded her thin arms and legs and her undeniably thickened waist in the mirror with displeasure. Oh no. Drelaine shrugged. You appear to be with child, young as you are. Constant pairing with a human has brought you to early fertility. I see no choice but for you to speak with the Emperor about it. You are in his power. It would be best, I think, for you to go directly to Morhold if he would agree to it, and bear the child there. Alone, Barenziah placed her hands on her swollen belly, tears forming in her eyes. Everything in her yearned to share the fruit of her love with her lover. He will never agree to that. He won't be parted from me now, you'll see. Drelaine shook her head. Although she said no more, a look of sympathy and sorrow had replaced her usual cool scorn. That night, Barenziah told Tiber Septim when he came to her for their usual assignation. With child, he looked shocked. No, stunned. You sure of it? But I was told elves do not bear at so young an age. Barenziah forced a smile. How can I be sure? I shall have my healer fetched. The healer, a high elf of middle years, confirmed that Barenziah was indeed pregnant, and that such a thing had never before been known to happen. It was a testimony to his excellency's potency, the healer said in syncopathic tones. Tiber Septim roared at him. This must not be, he said. Undo it. We command you. Sire, the healer gaped at him. I may not. Of course you can. You incompetent dullard, the Emperor snapped. It is our express wish that you do so. Barenziah, till then silent and wide-eyed with terror, suddenly sat up in bed. No, she screamed. What are you saying? Child, Tiber Septim sat down beside her, his face wearing one of his winning smiles. I am so sorry, truly, but this cannot be. Your issue would be a threat to my son and his sons. I shall no more put it plainly than that. The child I bear is yours, she wailed. No. Fucking piece of shit. No, it is now but a possibility, a might be, not yet gifted with a soul or quickened into life. I will not have it so. I forbid it. He gave the healer another hard stare, and the elf began to tremble. Sire, it is her child. Children are few among the elves. No elven woman conceives more than 4 times, and that is very rare. 2 is the usual number. Some bear none, even, and some only 1. If I take this one from her, sire, she may not conceive again. You promised us she would not bear to us. We have little faith in your prognostications. Barenziah scrambled naked from the bed and ran for the door, not knowing where she was going, only that she could not stay. She never reached it. Darkness overtook her. She awoke to pain and a feeling of emptiness, a void where something should be, something that used to be alive, but now was dead and gone forever. Trelane was there to soothe the pain and clean up the blood that still pooled at times between her legs, but there was nothing to fill the emptiness. There was nothing to take the place of the void. The emperor sent magnificent gifts and vast arrangements of flowers and came on short visits, always well attended. Barenziah received these visits with pleasure at first, but Tiber Septim came no more at night, and after some time, nor did she wish him to. This fucking bitch. Some weeks passed, and when she was completely physically recovered, Trelane informed her that Symmachus had written to request she come to Morholt earlier than planned. It was announced that she would leave forthwith. She was given a grand retinue, an extensive trousseau befitting a queen, and an elaborate and impressive ceremonial departure from the gates of the imperial city. Some people were sorry to see her leave, and expressed their sadness in tears and expostulations, for some others were not, and did not. That was a heavy read. Fuck that, man. This piece of shit. Not only is he fucking old and taking advantage of a 17-year-old that does not know what the fuck she's doing. I mean, 17, 18, kind of there. But he pulls this shit, and she was even hopeful that he would be okay with it. Fuck, man. That was a lot. That was a lot. Okay. So, it's a really good book. It's a really good story. Really interesting lore, but God is long. So yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Do this like, first one was the 3 of the biography of Barenziah, and then I did like the first one. I'm going to go by 2, so I'm going to leave it here for now because it's taking a lot of time and I'm kind of messing up when I'm talking and I have to edit it. So yeah, I won't have any time if I don't do that. So I'm going to cut it here, and then next time we're going to read volume 4 and volume 3. Volume 4 and volume 5. Got confused right there. So yeah, that will be all for today. So goodbye, bye bye.